for 30 minutes and then we go into Q&A section. So I may not read your comments too much during the talk section. Also, something that I was not really happy about was Rumble is not really showing my regular videos too much. So, but they are showing the live stream. They are feeding the live streams. So unfortunately, a lot of people just see the live stream, and the more important video is the main video that I make the day before. So just to be clear for the people on Rumble, because your comments aren't going to show in here. This screen comments here are only for people on YouTube. So you can see the people's comments on YouTube because you can see it on screen there. And anyway, if you're on Rumble, please click on the video after the broadcast. You can click on the video, the main video, which is going to be in the link. And I'm going to keep doing that now so that it's clear what's going on, because it's very confusing when you only see the live stream. Anyway, the main video, which is very important, is a discussion about the fact that end-to-end encryption is going to be killed by government. And somebody actually said, was it clickbait? No, not clickbait at all. The title is exactly accurate. It will be the end of end-to-end encryption. And somebody says, no, you got to come up with another kind of end-to-end encryption and it's going to solve it. No, and the reason it's not going to happen like that is because the three-letter agencies and the Five Eyes have already determined that the way to solve this encryption thing that they don't want encryption, obviously, because they want to spy on you, so they don't want encryption. So the way they want to do that is by scanning the device or scanning before encryption. In other words, it depends on the platform, but the intent would be basically be a man in the middle. So they want to put a man in the middle on the phone, the device itself, or a man in the middle in some app, so that an app like Signal, before it sends, I mean, obviously Signal's not gonna agree to this, but the plan is that Signal would filter your content from corporate before they even send it over to the end-to-end encryption. In other words, there is no end-to-end encryption. So it will mean the death of end-to-end encryption if we allow that to happen. Signal already said they're not going to support this, and if these kinds of things happen, they're going to basically leave the country that is pushing this. And so I believe they made these comments in relation to the UK. And likely they might do the same with the EU. So that's the basic gist of the plan, which is to ban end-to-end encryption by putting a man in the middle. They're not actually going to change end-to-end encryption. So Signal will still have end-to-end encryption, and all of these apps will still have end-to-end encryption, but it won't really be end-to-end encryption because there's a man in the middle. Okay, so somebody says, well, you can make a new encryption routine. I can cut and paste and do GPG and, send them a text message encrypted and all these. No, it's not going to work like that. As I explained in many of the comments, I said this, and this is something you got to understand with what I'm talking about here. What I'm saying is they're going to put the spy on the device, on the OS itself, or at the front of the app, basically an MITM, man in the middle. And what that really translates to is if they are allowed to do this, and if some apps support this, then what will happen is if you can see it on screen, then somebody else can see it. So for example, in the Apple case, Apple already has this implemented, right? They have the AI doing the scanning capability already. They did not say they're actively doing this, but the technology is in there to do it. So if pressed by a three-letter agency to spy and look for certain content, let's say this is the time of Obama bin Laden, they can say, we want to scan any phone with any photos of Osama bin Laden. So Anyway, that's what I'm talking about is a scan of the display. It's basically uh, a Trojan horse. That's exactly what they're talking about here. Trojan horse. Okay, so a screen grabber, something that the apps don't even know about. The apps don't need to know that the OS can actually see the screen. They don't need to know that, and that's exactly the thing we're talking about. And this is why this is so dangerous, and this is why you do not want this. This will destroy everyone's privacy all at once, and people like those in China would be, they already have no privacy as it is, and this is just gonna. I don't think they're allowed to do end-to-end encryption in China, so they already don't have it anymore. So they're under the whatever the dictatorship government says. That's what it is, and that's exactly what they want to do with everyone else, under the guise of child sexual exploitation. So it's supposed to save children. Now, I don't know how you're gonna save children with this. I mean, it's such an the CSAM or the child exploitation material is such a tiny fraction of the traffic here. It is so minuscule compared to everything that goes on with encryption. Even financial transactions go with encryption. So what they're saying is, we are going to obliterate the privacy in 99.99999% of the cases, just so the 0.0001 case is scanned. Well, obviously that is not true. Obviously that is not the goal. The goal is to eliminate of end-to-end encryption, because the three-letter agencies want that. They just found something. So somebody left a comment on my video that says, well, I'm a subscriber, Rob, but if I can save one child with this, then I'll gladly have my photo scanned. I mean, it's such an honorable thing to say, my friend. So, I mean, it sounds honorable to say that, but the fact of the matter is, this is a much more massive thing. I mean, if you're saying that they actually are justifying that 0.0001 of the material justifies this whole thing, then you are being led astray, my friend. You're being led astray, because it has nothing to do with that. That's just a front. They have other ways of looking for CSAM. I mean, iCloud, for example. I mean, just scan iCloud. Why does it have to do anything with end-to-end encryption? Just scan iCloud, scan Google Photos, scan all of that. That doesn't stop. Why does that have to stop? You can go scanning everything else that's stored in a server that doesn't relate to end-to-end encryption. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. End-to-end encryption is person to person. It has nothing to do with public postings. Somebody said, oh, we should post, we don't want, and this is the U.S. law, and this is the weird thing about the U.S. law. The U.S. law says, or the proposal, because obviously it hasn't passed yet, it's being discussed in the Senate. The U.S. law says we want to be able to pull CSAM material so that we do not basically cause PTSD with somebody who was a victim of CSAM when they were younger. So maybe they were younger and they were part of a CSAM material, and they don't want that popping on the internet. Well, nothing. I don't disagree with that. Obviously, you should do that. You should, block those materials in any way possible in any public area. So the question is, if you're blocking in a public area, what does that have to do with end-to-end encryption? End-to-end encryption is individual discussions between two people. What does that have to do with a group discussion or a forum post or a collection of people talk? What does that have to do with end-to-end encryption person to person? Well, nothing. But yet the way the laws are being framed, they're saying we're going to pass the liability of spotting any kind of material like this to the platform. And so if the platform wants to remain in business, they have to scan or they won't be in business because one of these is going to kill them. One of these is going to put liability on them. I mean, it's basically interesting because, you know, they can do the same thing with, they can use the same excuse with censorship. They can say, if you don't censor fake news, then we will, you know, obliterate you by whatever, fine you, you know, so many billions, and so you won't be you won't be able to survive. And so that's the same kind of thing here. But the reality is none of this has really anything to do with end-to-end encryption, and it's really a fake story. It's and that's really my point. Some of you are focusing on the CSAM and saying, well, they said it's for CSAM, so it's got to be for CSAM. Hell no. You can really do CSAM scanning in many various ways. I'm actually wondering, why did Apple even bother talking about CSAM scanning on the device? Why did they have to do that when they could have scanned iCloud directly? Why did they even have to announce it? They could have scanned CSAM now. I mean, iCloud is not end-to-end encrypted, or at least it wasn't. So why do they have to announce it now? They just kept scanning and report it to the government. Why even say anything? It's like saying, "Oh, you better hide now. You better hide. You better hide your content because we're coming." I mean, that's pretty stupid. It's like, yeah. So the perps are going to say, "Ooh, I guess we can hide it now. Let me put it on my local hard drive." And that's kind of the stupidity about all this, because it's really not about that. And that's really what this is about. This is what I've been trying to tell you. This is not about that. That's just the front. You know that it's just a front because it's disproportionate. It's a asymmetrical attack on end-to-end encryption. It's asymmetrical. You know, when 99.999% of your content has nothing to do with CSAM, we're gonna allow somebody to be a backdoor, a man in the middle on all interactions on end-to-end encryption as justification for 0.0001 probability that there would be such material, while announcing, by the way, to the perps that, hey, we're going to be scanning that, so you better not put it on there. Then why did you announce it? Because that's not really their concern. They announced it, meaning they don't want to see any CSAM in there. By pre-announcing it, they're saying, okay, we're going to be scanning for CSAM, so you better not put CSAM in there. Okay, then the CSAM will disappear. If there's 0.001 CSAM, it's going to be 0.0000001, and only the absolute stupid people will have CSAM left. In the meantime, they're implementing the device or client-side scanning, man in the middle on the device. And again, none of these laws are in place yet. None of these laws are in place. These were all proposed this year, and you know, some of them were only proposed as early as April, as recent as April, and you know, near the beginning of the year. So these are all new, and and this is the first time I've actually compiled all of them in a single video, and because, you know, I want to make sure we all know this, because Signal, you can see it on the press. Signal is, in the last few months, said, a couple months ago, I think, said, you know, they're going to leave, you know, the UK if they implement something like this. Session did the same thing. WhatsApp said the same thing, and all that. So anyway, that's the issue. Now, here's the funny part. How do you fucking evade the MITM, man in the middle, or client-side scanning, if they ever implemented this? And this is really the stupidity of this, because it's pretty easy to evade. They have to come up with another law banning something else. Okay? So I'm going to tell you the fact is, you don't want client-side scanning because you're a law-abiding citizen? Well, you can evade it pretty easily, and that's what we're going to focus on in the next few minutes. Which is pretty crazy, because you're saying, oh, because, you know, if you can evade this, then it's resolved. It's not resolved, folks. Because even if you personally can evade client-side scanning, the person you're communicating with the normie devices and the normie apps will expose your communication. Okay? And it may not have anything, nothing to do. Thank you, Ferdinando RDDL. Thank you. May have nothing to do with CSAM. It may have no connection whatsoever. And yet they're gonna be prevented from having privacy. So here's the problem. I can tell you how to protect yourself, but the other person has to protect themselves too. So it's not that simple anymore. So all of us, we're experts now. All of you listening are experts. We can all be safe communicating with each other. We don't have to worry about MITM because we can evade it. The question is, the normies, your sister, your brother, your nephew, your niece, your grandpa, grandma, your mom, your dad, all of them. Your friends, your millennial friends who, have the phone in their hands every fucking second. They're on Instagram. Well, how are they going to escape this? Well, they're not going to be able to escape it, meaning you can't message them. So that's the problem. You can't message them with anything other than a short note saying, talk to me on such and such a platform. Because that's all you can say. You won't be able to say anything in private. So, because somebody's always watching. Do you like somebody always watching? Is that acceptable to you? I mean, we lived like that for most of our lives. Somebody was always watching, actually. So, end-to-end encryption is only 10 years old. So, before 10 years ago, end-to-end encryption did not exist. So, somebody could read something, and of course they did. So some of you, for example, communicate on text-based messaging systems on, one of those chat things on or forums, and you actually didn't know that the three-letter agencies was capturing all that and reading whatever is going on the internet and storing in their database. They were doing that. So, but it's been difficult for them. To be honest with you, it's been difficult for three-letter agencies that their data requires them to use a quantum computer now to break the encryption, and it's getting harder and harder because they've implemented like forward secrecy in the last few years. And forward secrecy means that they can't even go back and break encryption that easily anymore because there's kind of like a different encryption just based on the time. There's like an expiration. So anyway, how do you evade the man in the middle? So if you have a friend and both of you are smart enough because you watch my channel and hopefully you subscribed, and I don't get the 50 unsubscribes at every live stream. I get that. Every live stream I lose 50. 30 to 50. It's really so irritating. So, I mean, it's like, why do you, it's so insulting to be having people unsubscribe when you have a live stream. Why don't you unsubscribe at a different time? Why do you have to unsubscribe during the live stream? I have no idea. Anyway, it is what it is. So anyway, the solution to getting away from the MITM is, of course, to do open source. Anything open source, they're not going to be able to sneak in secret code for MITM and anything open source. So if any app, for example, Session is open source, okay, so I don't have to worry about Session, okay, so that means if I use Session, then it's going to be open source. Okay, Signal is only partially open source, so that could worry you then. Of course, they said they're not going to participate in this. Linux is open source. Okay, now, depending on the distro, even if it's open source, somebody can inject some code in there. So you want to make sure that you get as close to mainline as possible with very few inserted code by let's say an Ubuntu, because they can do that. They can insert code in there, and it's not open source, and they can do that. But you can easily verify anyway that, because you want to get as close to mainline Linux as possible, and you can do that. For example, you could get Debian or one of the higher up the chain, closer to mainline Linux versions, and then you'd be able to guarantee that there's no man in the middle. I don't expect any Linux version to have any kind of man in the middle, so because they're not going to survive if that ever happens. So, but they could be forced by law. So, big companies like Canonical and so on, and Red Hat, they may be forced by law to do something. Whereas, a group that's completely open source, where there's no actual corporation in charge, now who are they going to sue? So that's why open source is kind of good for that, because there would be no entity to attack. So yeah, I mean, we may end up using some limited version, completely raw, like Linux, like Arch Linux, because we want to make sure there's no MITM. So that's one of the answers on a computer. You would certainly stay away from Windows, stay away from Mac OS. Mac OS already has the client-side scanning, so it's already pretty bad right now. Now, what about on the phone? Well, on the phone, the Android Open Source Project, or AOSP, will be completely open source. Now, that one is good because you can compile Android Open Source directly from the source code. So you can be sure that there's no inserted or injected code. So on all of the true AOSP, including Brax OS, Calyx, and Lineage, and all that, you can actually compile from the published source code. And so you can see if there's any modification to the original source code. And if there isn't, then you will be able to see that there is no man in the middle code injected in there. So it's basically, I can tell you right now that it's so unlikely to have any kind of man in the middle code if you go open source. So that's going to keep us safe. The problem is, of course, the normies. The normies are going to be running the iOS on their iPhones, and they're going to be running Windows and Mac OS, and the normies are going to be stuck. So you can't communicate with normies, but at least you're going to be able to find somebody to talk to safely if you are not a normie and you understand all this. So there is a solution for us. So we personally, the people who want some privacy, we would be safe for the initial attack of this. But guess what would happen? They're going to start doing things like they're going to ban Linux. They're going to ban the use of AOSP. How can you see that? If they can't win in a direct way, they're going to start, attacking us too. That's a little bit of a harder journey because, to destroy open source. If you destroy open source, a lot of the free software will disappear. That will affect the economy in such a big way. But, basically every server out there is running open source. Every Linux server is open source. I mean, goodness, you'd collapse many corporations if you did anything like that. So it's a stretch to imagine that could happen, and I'm not projecting that. And but the reality is we need to just fight and say hell no. Stop with your CSAM BS. We know it's BS. So, stop people who make a comment, say, we want to save the children. Suck that. There's nothing to do with children. It's a lie. Okay? It's a complete lie. It's just a cover. They're just finding the proper buzzwords. This is like, there's so many fake news in the world, and you find something. You hang your hat onto it, and you push that concept until everybody starts listening to it and thinking that's the most important issue in the world. Like, for example, Apple apparently announced with some, I didn't watch it, but with some long segment saying that they're going to be CO2 free by 2030. Linus Tech Tips showed that little portion, and they said that they will be CO2 free by 2030. And I was like saying to myself, if we had no CO2, we would all die. I mean, I don't get that. Okay? I mean, obviously the plants need CO2. So it's like this thing about CO2, you can absolutely get down to zero. It's like, is that the goal? But that's what they're communicating, because that's what they're communicating. Okay? So I'm just letting you know that, you put a buzzword out like CO2, and you start thinking, oh, CO2 is bad. So, oh my gosh, we can't have CO2. And all of you breathe out CO2. Oh my gosh, all of you are ruining the environment because you're all breathing out CO2. And, it's everything is taken out of context, and it's kind of similar to CSAM. It's like out of context. It's as if that CSAM is the major crisis of the internet is CSAM. Really? I mean, CSAM is illegal. I haven't seen any CSAM in my internet life. So, it's rare enough for me. I haven't seen it. Maybe I don't go to those kinds of places, and maybe some of you do. Obviously, it's illegal to do that. I have not seen any CSAM. So, Aaron Gray, that's not what they're saying. It's what they're you make some word like CO2 become such an extreme element of your statement that you actually make people think CO2 is bad. So you can't have zero CO2. You're breathing out CO2. That means you got to get rid of all the humans. Okay? Can't have humans then. So yeah, so you understand that how that's you do a marketing thing. You pick a buzzword, and then you focus on that, and that becomes the thing. So just like CSAM, you make that the thing, and not the whole context. We are the carbon they want to reduce. Yeah. So anyway, so there is a way to prevent this, at least for some of us, and we need to not accept what they say and call them out on their CSAM BS. And it's not just me. The EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, Signal, all the Telegram, all the messaging apps, Session, they all spoke out and they said this is BS. So it's not just me. They understand the implications of all this. So leave my CO2 alone. So James Randolph. Yeah, you can't have beer. You can't have carbonated drinks. That's right. That's all CO2. So. But but your iPhone will no longer emit CO2. Of course, I'm wondering, why is my iPhone emitting CO2 anyway? It shouldn't be emitting CO2. So I buy that Apple. The iPhone should not be emitting CO2. So yeah, okay. So thanks for listening to that little portion there, and then we'll continue on in a second. Let me just interrupt for a moment with our sponsor, which you can't see. So let me hide that for a moment here. Oops. So you can see the sponsor. I'll bring the chat back in a second. So anyway, I want to introduce you to Akamai Linode. Linode is a cloud services provider. In fact, it's called Akamai Cloud Services. And if you want servers and website, for example, and you want to put it in the cloud, this is the service that offers that. And there are many services that offer cloud services, including Google, Microsoft, who else? Amazon, and then Linode is one of them. There's GoDaddy. There's a gazillion of them. There's many little ones as well, and Linode is just one of them, and not the biggest, but the oldest. In fact, Linode was way ahead. Linode was doing cloud services with Linux servers way before Amazon AWS. So just to give you an idea of how long ago this has been. So and they've succeeded, and they've been around this whole time, and they've done a great job of that. They caught the eye of Akamai, and Akamai bought them, and now they're part of Akamai, and they're expanding because of Akamai. Now, why do you want to consider Linode? Because if you want to save money, and if you want good service, I have not seen a company that is cheaper and gives you such excellent service. And I deal with Akamai every day, and deal with their staff every day, and they're excellent. They just take care of you. We never have any issues with Linode. I've never had a single issue with Linode. They've just been so easy to deal with. Now, if you go to linode.com and put /Rob Braxman and you sign up for a Linode account, they're going to give you a $100 credit to your Akamai account. So if you have a business and you want to do a website, tell whoever is building a website, or maybe it's you and you want to put a WordPress server up there, do it on Linode. If you are a student and you want to play with servers, what best way than to do it on Linode servers, where they charge no more than $5 a month for a server that's running the whole month. So if you set up you're a computer science major, you want to set up a server for a portion of the month while you're testing things, you don't pay for the time that it's down, only when it's up. So that's a pretty cheap way to learn. And for the first 2 months, it's free. So consider that, my friends, and let's continue on with our live stream. Okay, so for those of you, I see many comments on Linode, and then you can see the comments also on YouTube. It's very hard for me to read the Linode comments because it's very, very small. So yeah, so I'm going to try. If I see anything relevant, I'll respond to it. Okay, iPhone would be generating CO2 if it was on fire. Okay, I'm sure they're talking about production, creation of CO2, but we're just being facetious here. Come on. So we're just being facetious. So, okay, now, Rumble comments. Did I say Linode comments? Okay, Rumble comments. So, consider moving your sponsor break to 8:35 to avoid conflicts so viewers can see your sponsor break message. Why? Was there an ad? Did they pop an ad? Did it pop an ad? Did YouTube pop an ad? Wow. Okay, gonna have to one more thing to set up. It's kind of complicated to be doing live streams because you're busy talking and things are happening in the background and you don't even know. So anyway, it's kind of nice when, like I said, there is a way out. The open source will save us. And so it's not a dead end. We can basically, here's the funny part. They can do MITM. They can do all this banning. They can spy on us in every kind of way. And we, the experts, all of you who listen to me will be the experts. We can evade it. All of us. So what is the point? They're like trying to like do all this like, oh, we're gonna be able to catch you if you're doing CSAM. Hell no, because we can evade it. If we can evade it, then don't you think somebody doing CSAM will take even more steps to evade? So you think you're actually going to be succeeding? No, it's going to be a cat and mouse game. And, in the meantime, they're spying on everyone and they'll never catch a single CSAM because the people doing CSAM will find a way to evade just like we can evade. And who are going to be the victims? Of course, the normies. The normies. The normies are going to be the victims here. Because the normies said, oh, they said it's for CSAM, so I guess you can spy on me. I'm helping the world. I guess you can spy on me. I mean, that is the stupidity of this whole thing. If you can evade it, then what's the point? It's like, don't want to talk about guns because, YouTube doesn't like that. But it's, it's like something similar. You ban guns, but nobody bans the criminals who don't care about the ban. The criminals don't care about the ban of guns. So the ban of guns only affects the citizens, the normal citizens who have one. If you're a criminal, you're going to get a gun by illegal means and you're going to do whatever you need to do. And you don't care because if you get caught, that's the least of your worries. So that's why, it's the same thing here. You implement a rule to spy on a phone. If there's a way to evade it, and I just told you there is, then who are they going to catch? Well, obviously, it's not for catching anyone anyway. Once you announce that you're going to be doing this, you're not going to catch them even more. You're not going to catch them. Now, what does the politician says when they implement this, and 10 years later they haven't caught anybody, just like the Patriot Act? How many terrorists have they caught with the Patriot Act? With all the spying that's been done, mass surveillance on the world, how many terrorists have they, how many lives have they saved? How many lives have they saved from the Patriot Act, from a terrorist attack? Related to the Patriot Act, probably zero. So basically, we allowed ourselves to be spied on because, of this. And the actual terrorists say, well, if they're going to spy on us, then we can't use the means where they can spy on you. We can't use that means to communicate because they're going to catch us. So then they evade that. That's why they're never caught. They find a different way. They go analog. So now the Patriot Act doesn't work on analog. So then who's the victim? All of you, all of us. What happened to terrorists? They're going analog. They're using paper. They're using personal messaging. So they're not affected by the Patriot Act. Only you are. And there you go. Same with ducking CSAM. Same exact thing. Yeah, so you think you're going to catch somebody with CSAM? Hell no. Just like they can't catch a terrorist because the terrorist obviously will use some other means. I mean, you have to understand here that it's not like the world is static. You do something and somebody fights back. You do encryption, somebody tries to break the encryption. You break the encryption, somebody comes up with a way to unbreak the encryption. On and on and on. It's always this massive fight. This is why there are hackers. It's like a non-stop battle between parties to get the upper hand. It's never fixed. So these laws are made to be fixed, and they're not going to work because they'll be overridden in a second. I'm already telling you now, if they implement these laws, we can get around it. How? I just told you. Open source. They can't put that kind of code in open source unless they ban open source. And if they ban open source, we have a whole different issue. If they ban open source, I'll use open source anyway. So they don't have to try cracking RSA, Aaron Gray. By the way, you can crack RSA with a quantum computer. It's just time consuming, but can be done. So, but you don't want to. They're not doing this by cracking RSA. They're doing it by putting a man in the middle. Somebody, like a remote, remote access Trojan. So if you put a remote access Trojan in your phone, it doesn't matter what end-to-end encryption you're using. Somebody can see your screen. The are fun guys in the house, huh? So somebody can see your screen. If somebody can see your screen, then no encryption is going to work, because it's like somebody running a video of whatever you see on the screen, and obviously nothing is a secret, right? People are like misunderstand. Some of you actually made statements like, I came up with a brand new encryption scheme. You're not going to be able to break this. It's gonna, it's on and on and on. All the different, I came up with a new encryption method, and on, this is nonstop. Or I'm going to send, my own text message, and I'm going to encrypt it with PGP. There's no PGP, it's GPG now. But so I'll correct that. I'll encrypt it with GPG, and then I'll be safe. No, because it's a remote access Trojan, my friends. That's the kind of stuff they're talking about. The AI, in the case of Apple, is the remote access Trojan. The AI is the remote access Trojan. By the way, to interrupt my discussion here, yes, I want to talk to you about robbraxman.locals.com, and thank you, Cosmic Rose, for bringing that up. But I really haven't set it up yet. But I'm going to spend more time on robbraxman.locals.com, and you can support me there. And believe it or not, it actually comes to me instead of being intercepted by, a huge percentage going to Patreon and to YouTube and so on. When you go to locals.com, the cut is actually very small. Their cut, and most of it goes to me. So what I'm going to be doing is, offering a membership subscription service on robbraxman.locals.com, and then put content on there, and then and interact specifically on that platform. So those who are subscribing can get into more of a discussion of things that may teach you more stuff, and and maybe from a subscription of as little as $5 a month. So I'm going to set that up on robbraxman.locals.com. I've not done that. I really haven't had the time to do that yet, and primarily because I was not getting the expected reaction from Rumble. Rumble was supposed to be feeding my regular videos on the top of the screen in the editor's pick, and they've only been doing the live stream. So, right. So locals.com is where. By the way, I got interviewed by Brian Lunduke. For those of you who are on Linux, you know who Brian Lunduke is. He's pretty well known in the Linux world, and he interviewed me a couple days ago. When was that? I forget. So, and he already posted that, and he put it on his locals.com. So it's Lunduke. If you wanna know where Lunduke is lunduke.locals.com. He's pretty much not doing much on YouTube and not doing much on the old Twitter. I think he got banned on Twitter by the old Twitter. So he has a new account on Twitter, but it's not on X, but not. It's pretty brand new. He used to have a very big following on social media. So anyway, he interviewed me, and it was pretty fun. And he invited me to bring tech people onto to Locals, because there's not a lot of people on Locals. There's some people from Periscope he went to and our bigger locals like Scott Adams. If any of you were from Periscope days, Scott Adams used to be with us on Periscope, and he's one of the biggest players now on locals. So yeah, so Lunduke also is, Linux expert there, and he's trying to bring some of us in tech, because Locals is not a tech site. Locals is owned by Rumble. So so the same kind of demographic for Rumble, mostly the average person, not techies, are on Rumble. Rumble is not a techie environment. So if you're already on Rumble, then Rob Braxman at locals.com is the best way to support, and that's unfortunately likely better than doing the YouTube membership. I know, I talk about YouTube membership here, but honestly, YouTube takes most of that. YouTube takes most of the cut. So it's hard for me to really see much of what is put into membership, because YouTube takes most of it. So yeah, so on Rob Braxman at locals.com, the cut of the platform is very small, so it's very, very reasonable. There's technically correct, Rob Braxman. There's crazy maniacal. I don't know what that means, Neil. So have no idea. Anyway, we had a nice chat with Brian Lunduke. It was we just talked tech and talked about Linux phones and why Linux phones aren't succeeding. Brian Lunduke used to work for Librem and was responsible for promoting the Librem 5, and he didn't get along with him, and he left. But I still have the Librem 5 that I paid $800 for, right here, sitting in the box, unusable, overheats, doesn't run for more than 4 hours, and no solution offered. After 3.5 years of waiting for it to ship, meaning they took my money 3.5 years ago, and it just shipped. And then when I got it, I ran it, and it was, the first time I ran it, I couldn't even boot it. I have another one. Somebody sent me an old Librem 5 before this, like last year, and I could never run it. It doesn't start. Whew. So, yeah. So I don't know if that company is going to survive. I mean, it's at least the Pine phone actually has a running phone. It is very inexpensive. They spent no more. You spend no more than $250 for the first one. I think the next model was a little bit more expensive, but it's still worth it, because if you're doing development work, which is what they admit is for developer work, then you can work on making a better Linux phone. At the moment, don't even think about using a Linux phone if you're an average person. Do not think of it. Think Android open source project, like one of these. This is a Brax 2. I don't have any more Brax 2s, but I only have repair supplies of Brax 2. So if you have a broken one, we have stock of that, but we don't have any packaged ones with boxes. So, well, Joe Rogan is my. Joe Rogan watches me. He just hasn't invited me, but Joe Rogan is one of my, active followers, subscribers. He's. In case you forgot, when Joe Rogan featured me on his show, so he talked about me for 10 minutes on his show. And I was not the guest. He talked to another guest about me for 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Okay? 10 minutes and mentioned me, and then 5,000 people came to my channel and subscribed. So, which is, I suppose, is not, not a big number in today's world here, but in any case, when he did that, he actually talked about what I talk about. He knew the Google phones, VPN routers. He knew all that. He knew everything I talked about because he was listening. I do not have any more Brax 2s. That is correct, Jimmy Rogers. Brax 2s are no longer in stock. So obviously that means there will be a Brax 3. However, we encountered some issues with the Brax 3. I have a Brax 3 in test mode, and we encountered some issues with my test device that makes me uncomfortable to sell it anytime soon. So, so for that reason, I can't promise you, like when it's going to happen, because if the model that I had was sellable, then I'd be able to push it and say, we'll have it available for you very soon. The reality is, upon testing, I am not satisfied with its performance in the US. It will work internationally just fine, but in the US, I will have issues, and I don't want to really subject myself to so much returns because you're going to be unhappy, as I was unhappy because I'm using it. I'm using it every day. Because I'm using it every day, I know what the problems are, and for that reason, I can't really push it. So for the moment here, the best device on my site is the Pixel 6, Pixel 6a, and Pixel 5. These are like, excellent top-end phones, and we have tons of them. So we have as many of those phones as we have Brax 2s. So, and we'll likely never run out. So if so, Pixel 6, Pixel 6a, Pixel 5, and if we run out of those, next year it'll be Pixel 7s. So why do U.S. carriers have to be such a PITA? Exactly. For example, to make your phone be compatible so that it's not rejected by AT&T, you need payola. You remember payola back in the old days? You want your record to be promoted at the radio station, you got to pay up. Well, yep. Same with AT&T. T-Mobile doesn't require anything, and Verizon is a pain in the sucking butt. Okay, so you're gonna love the Google Pixel 6 running Calyx OS. I mean, it's if you're gonna ask me now, I have a pre-production Brax 2 against a Pixel 6a. Well, obviously the Pixel 6a wins hands down. The reception is much better. Mainly the big issue is reception. So until the Brax 3 is ready, and I think it means, if I'm going to guess, we're going to need another production run with the right specs. I do not like the current specs. If we have to do a production run with a different spec, it's going to take time. So I'm sure there will be a delay before that's available. So I don't know how quickly that can happen. In case you didn't know, in China, they go through Chinese New Year and the whole factory shuts down in January to February. So it's a pretty difficult thing if you don't get your products ordered and figured out by December. If they're not shipping by December, then you could get screwed. So because of this, I do not know what to tell you about if the testing were perfect, then I would say we can move ahead and start putting it in pre-order status. But at the moment, I don't. I'm not seeing that yet. So yeah. So I'm sorry to say that, but that's where it is. So if you're holding off buying a phone because you think the Brax 3 is going to come out, it may take a little longer than what I originally said. So, and there's no reason to withhold when there's definitely such good phones there, like the Pixel 6a, Pixel 6, and the Pixel 5. These are all 5G phones. They're pretty good phones, and they're running Calyx OS. I really like Calyx OS. It's you can reset a Calyx OS phone, kind of like a Brax OS. You can reset it, factory reset. It doesn't lose anything. The only thing you can't do to a Pixel is you can't change the IMEI. So that's the advantage of Brax phones. You can change the IMEI. So at any time you want to appear like a different phone, all you do is flash the IMEI and you're done. But anyway, we don't have it coming soon. So I don't know how early it can. I mean, I can't imagine getting a run before December. I really can't imagine right now. So yeah. So if you miss December, then you're in March. Okay. The 6A is pretty much of a bargain. The 6A is $420. 6A is $420. The 6 is 6 something. I forget. 630 maybe? I can't remember. 630 maybe, 620. I can't remember. But I recall the 6A to be 420. The 5 is 419. So yeah. Well, the penny wise, then you can obviously wait for the Brax 3. It's going to come out eventually. But yeah, I mean, we are these prices are pretty good. I've lowered them. Many Brax. Many the Google phones are very expensive. $800. So these are, my most expensive one is is 6 something, and most of them are sold between the mid 300s to, like, we still have Pixel 3As, and that's being sold for what, 319? I mean, it's pretty cheap. Pretty cheap. It's 620 plus shipping. 07 just checked, so that's great. Okay. So anyway, that's the expectation of our setup with the phones, because as I expect you to realize here, a Google phone of any sort, including the Google Pixels with Calyx OS, or the Brax 2 phones. Many of you have Brax 2 phones. We're kind of exempt from this man in the middle thing because they can't insert that. By the way, even if they try to put this in place, it'll take years for this to get implemented. You can't just say, oh, we're going to demand that you put spy. Only Apple can spy on you right now. Only Apple can spy on you. You just bought a Pixel 7 Pro. We can de-Google Pixel 7 Pros and Pixel 7s. So you can pay for that service is $130 plus shipping. So yeah, so we can de-Google Pixel 7s, Pixel 6 Pros. Just about any Pixel now can be de-Googled. So yeah. So of course you can do it yourself. I don't want people to think that I'm here just trying to sell stuff. I'm just providing a service here. For those of you who do not have the skill set we can do it for you. I don't have to, to do any kind of hard sell. It's not important to me. If you want to buy the Google phones from somebody else, that's fine too. EOS is a good company. Morena. I've talked to them before. I know the CEO, and yeah, if you're in the EU and you want to buy a Morena EOS phone, it's gonna do the job exactly as any Google phone. It's gonna do the job. So yeah, so yes, I support EOS. If they want to do that, then you want to buy from them, you can do that. They primarily focus on Samsung phones and international Samsungs. We can't get access to the kind of phones they have. What is Zorn? Are you a fan of Zorn? What is Zorn? I don't know what Zorn is unless you're talking about Zorin. So anyway, yeah, you'd worry about breaking your phone if you do it yourself. Yes, and some of you don't want to spend the time to research it. It's time consuming, and it's like you don't want to do plumbing, so you hire a plumber. So we'll do it for you at less than the cost of a plumber. We don't charge as much as a plumber. We charge $130 for our tech to do it. Obviously, you have to pay salary. So yeah, so our tech can do it for you, and no problem. So it's John Zorn from Masada Jazz Klezmer Band. No, I do not know. Must not be my type of my type of jazz then, because I don't know. I'm or maybe not from this area. Maybe it's in a different area. Yeah, I'm very serious with my jazz. I still study jazz. Hopefully I'm improving every time, and maybe in my lifetime I'll be doing concerts. So I'm not going to discuss the Restrict Act. I'm discussing all the acts relating to that same thing. That's what the whole video was about. I believe I did a live stream on Restrict already before. I did a video on that before. iPhone 15 coming out with zucking norm will come after. Oh yeah. iPhone 15. At least it has USB-C. So any Canadian artists you're into, well, some jazz artists are Canadian, like Diana Krall is Canadian. Don't know specifically, like major, like Oscar Peterson was Canadian. So, but because I don't really follow the style of Oscar Peterson. He's now one of my influences. So I'm more Bill Evans and Herbie Hancock, Keith Jarrett, that kind of thing. Chick Corea, and they're all Americans. If I do jazz live intros, they're gonna demonetize. So, yeah, can't overdo that. So that's why I put jazz in my jazz channel. It's Rob Braxman Jazz. So Rob Braxman Jazz channel. So I'm glad we're not talking too seriously now. We're at 9:04, so we got 26 minutes, and we're able to deviate to topics that are not so serious. I talked about the Restrict Act before, TR Fun Guy. The problem is I don't recall the details of the act now, so I can't just go talk about it until I read again what it says, because I reacted to it originally. and I don't remember the details of what they said. So yeah, I reacted to it before, but I had a very specific reaction to it. I had a very specific. I actually took some of the specific words, and now I can't remember what that is. Uh, I know that some of you actually think it bans VPNs, for example. Although I didn't. Although that's a possibility, it didn't really actually state that. Publius Valerius Publicola got a 504. Okay. Okay. So let me just check on. Let me just check on Rumble here. Wu Hin says, "Thank God we have the FBI to protect us from the FBI." Unfortunately, I can't combine the comments from Rumble. I guess the Restream.io, the one I use, doesn't support Rumble directly. If they did, they can add the comments on. So yeah. So let's see. How come the silence on Intel ME? Whose silence? Not my silence. I have a video on it this year, I believe. I forget the title of the video, but yeah, Intel IME was featured heavily in in backdoors on chips on Intel. Yeah. Not just Intel, but it depending on the backdoor, it could even be on AMD. So basically, every computer. So silence and IME. Now the reason that I don't really need to repeat as often the issues about IME is that you got to understand the IME risk, because it's not really a risk for the average person as it is for corporate use. Let me explain why. Okay, corporate users have the IME risk in a big way because you can access them on a LAN. But IME cannot be controlled through a DMZ. Not DMZ. Your router is going to stop it. The opposite of DMZ, your LAN. Okay, so forget the term now. I'm getting a mental block. So by default, your devices have a 192.168 IP address or 10.0.0 IP address, and which means it's not addressable on the internet unless you're an IPv6. So hopefully you turn IPv6 off. If you're not on IPv6, and IPv6 is not accessible on the internet anyway, so IPv6 really only works from the ISP to your device if you're using IPv6. It's not yet available to some third party to say, I'm going to IPv6 access your device and use IME. Okay, because they can't open up a port on your home computer using IME, then it's not really a threat for you. You're not going to experience any IME attack. Okay, so the IME attack is possible only in a corporate environment because, first of all, your IT department has access to IME. So they're not attacking you. They have access and they have permission to go. They own the computers, so they can do whatever they want on it. So they can actually do that. They can access your device. They can read your E2E messages even today, because they can just be. They can just capture your screen and do all that. So They don't need any special rights. It's their computer. Okay, so that's what IME does. Now, a home computer is not really subject to IME. The only way for IME to affect you is the attacker is on your home network, and that attacker has IME access, and that means they have to have hacked IME. And there's not too many hacks of IME yet. Most of the IME is legit, meaning they get the Intel code for it to break into your computer because they're authorized to do it. Okay, so anyways, that's so IME is not a threat to the home. Therefore, we don't have to worry about that for breaking into an encryption. Okay. Okay, I'm not seeing anything that's obvious on the Rumble side that I can comment on. It's just people are making comments, but not necessarily a question directed at me. Okay, so it can done via browser exploits. So the other thing that you can do on a Intel computer is to attack it. Attack memory, and that actually is a thing. But that's not a man-in-the-middle attack per se. So what they can do is read your memory. So as an example, it may be possible to read passwords and things. If somebody breaks into you because you're running a browser, and then they have they run some JavaScript that corrupts memory, and then they're able to then access that. And none of those have been fixed. I wouldn't imagine, Kevin Davis, I wouldn't imagine that it'd be in the summer. It's going to be sooner than that, I'm going to put a range of anywhere from December to March. That's my guess. December to March. Okay? Meaning if it makes it to December, we're good. But if it doesn't make it in December, it's going to be March. It's not going to be January. It's not going to be February. It's either December or it's March. Okay? So just so you know that. Anyway, my discussion of the flaws on an Intel chip are in that separate video. So you can watch that. It's not really, the problem is I don't spend too much time on that because the average person is not being attacked by that, and I don't want you to over focus on it because it's not really something that they would attack you at your house. Okay? So it's not something that would attack you at your house. So therefore, for that reason, it's a lower threat level than everything else that we have to deal with, which is, big tech. Big tech doing what they're doing, or if they implement some of the stuff that I'm talking about with the end-to-end encryption, is inserting a man in the middle, a remote access Trojan on your phone. So iPhones already have this. So if you have an iPhone, they already have a remote access Trojan on your phone. They call it client-side scanning via the neural engine. So the neural engine is doing the spying. So that's why Apple says, well, we're not spying on you. Yeah, that's correct. No human initially is spying on your phone. They've instructed the AI to do the spying for them. Okay, so that's on your iPhone. Now, let's talk about what other devices might follow the iPhone. If this becomes law, will Google follow? Well, likely, if Google wants to follow, Google happens to also have the Tensor chip. The Tensor chip has an AI capability as well. So AI, some sort of AI equivalent to the neural engine on Apple, is going to be is in the Tensor chip. So therefore, it's going to be possible for some phones, the Pixel 6, Pixel 7s, Pixel 6s and 7s, may have the possibility of client-side scanning if they implement it the same way as Apple. Now, they don't have to implement it the same way as Apple. They can just put a man in the middle there directly and just scan it remotely. However, that would be resource intensive. What Apple did doesn't take any resources. They give the AI the instruction, all the work is done locally, and your phone doesn't have battery depletions. It's a pretty smart move from a spying standpoint. It's the most efficient way to spy. So, so if you want that, then make sure you get the new iPhone 15. It's going to be lovely. iPhone 15, and you're going to, be part of that infrastructure. Well, they're going to make sure that they can scan you. So if that's, interesting to you, then go ahead and do that. Go get an iPhone 15. If you are a bit more concerned about your privacy, then you'd probably not select that device. By the way, older iPhones, the iPhone 8 and below, aren't going to be subject to that. So this is something that's really just an issue with iPhone 10 and above. So the feature for neural engine was not part of. Sorry, my computer locked up here, which is my Linux computer locked up, which had Rumble on it, which is not good press for Linux. Why? Actually, Firefox crashed it. So maybe Firefox had a bug. So anyway, let's see what other questions you have. The tensor chip is very powerful. We like those chips for local image recognition on a Raspberry Pi 4. Somebody else controlling, you can see the apps open and close, and then magically the phone is normal again. Publius, don't always assume that everything is is some sort of hack. The common reason for that is a bug. So some people say, okay, my computer is behaving weird, so it must be a hack. Frankly, the modern hack, you wouldn't even know your phone was hacked. They'd just contact you and say, we pulled your data. We pulled your data. So that's going to be your only indication that you got hacked. So the more obvious the hack is, it's unlikely to be a hack because, hackers aren't that dumb. Okay, so it's running again on Linux. Okay, so I can see the comments on Linux now, which is Rumble. Okay, what else do we have here? So we got 12 minutes left. RPI4 is probably one of the most secure solutions. I have a video on the Raspberry Pi. It's really not worth buying one. So I don't know. What is a good secure solution? Android AOSP is, but it's not a computer. You're saying it's secure because it's running an ARM chip, and that's probably true. But it's just the price is not right. When you used to buy them for $35, and now it's not. I don't like spending money. By the way, just to announce this, I found a stash, quite a few actually, of Raspberry Pis in my possession. So I have a bunch of Raspberry Pi 4s, so I can probably it'll take me some time to check each one out and put them in a case, and then I can sell them as uh, as routers, as VPN routers, because I haven't had stock of these in a while, and I found them and sitting right here. It just takes several days of going through them and testing each one. So yeah, that can open up the because I haven't sold too many of these Raspberry Pis. People are now buying Raspberry Pis, so so occasionally people buy the software. But I used to sell this in large numbers, and I found a good number of them. I have a good number of them here. So it's trying to think how many I have here. I may have 30 to 50 of them. It's my guess. So I just have to test the motherboards. Don't buy anything yet, Adam Smith. I got to go test them first. So I just got to find a time to go test them. And yeah, and I got such a backlog. I mean, it's very hard to make videos, guys. I mean, if you don't know how much time it consumes of my time to make videos, I got to come up with a topic, research it, write it, record it, edit it, and then do a live stream. It's very, very time consuming. It's 80% of my time. So 20% of my time is available to do stuff. And many times, a lot of you call me and not call me, but contact me for tech support, and that consumes the rest of that 20%. So I don't have a ton of time to go run through these Raspberry Pi 4s and check them all out. So I have to assign it to somebody else. So, but yeah, there's quite a few here, and I'm wasting money by having it sit here because there's nothing wrong with them. And a Raspberry Pi motherboard is a Raspberry Pi motherboard. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. So, but I do have to test each one. I notice you always wear a different pair of glasses for those pre-recorded videos. Oh, because I have a different pair on the boat. I'm on the boat. I'm here. It's whatever's handy next to me here. So anyway, yeah. So if you're needing phones and you're thinking of holding out for Brax 3, if you are not able to hold out, you should really. It's not going to come that soon, so it's basically months away. So I'm going to suggest to you to plan on getting a Pixel. And some of these Pixels are really, really nice. The Pixel 6 and Pixel 6As are very, very nice phones. You'll be impressed by them. They're very nice phones. So and I was expecting that when you see the Brax 3 phone, you will like it as well, because it's also a Brax 3 is a very nice phone when and if I have it. Can you do a show? No, I don't do any blockchain related things on YouTube. So yeah, everyone is very happy with the Google Pixels Flash with Calyx OS. I'm very happy with the Calyx OS people. It's a good OS. It's very user friendly, and it doesn't have the drama of the other OSs that have crazy people on them. And it's basically much more reliable for resets than a Lineage OS. Lineage OS is very user friendly. So I've always liked Lineage OS because from a user point of view, it's very functional as everything. However, when you do a reset of Lineage OS, you lose micro G, you lose all of the other stuff that's basic F-Droid. Whereas on Calyx, you do not lose them, just like Brax 2. Brax OS, you reset, you do not lose any of that. In fact, Brax 2 will put back the apps. Lineage does remove everything, and so that's more work. Also, Lineage cannot be updated to another version, whereas BraxOS can and CalyxOS can. So CalyxOS is as close as I can get to BraxOS. So and it's much more user friendly than some of the other choices. Brax 3 have Wi-Fi 6E and support Web 3? No. I have the Pixel Fold. How you doing, Lavelle? Lavelle Logan is a very, very old-time follower. So many years, like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. I'm signed in now. Start at lobby. I don't know what that means, Pennywise. I don't know what you're signed in. Somebody will help you. Okay, so we got 4 minutes left. And let me see. If you are running a AOSP, if Google puts in code for being an MITM to scan your content on AOSP, it's not going to be left there. We're going to remove that for sure, and it is very unlikely they'd put it there. So you can pretty much assume this, that there will be no tensor code for doing spying on AOSP, which means it's never going to be on any Google OS. It's extremely unlikely they would expose that kind of code. I'm sure it's proprietary. They will almost 100, I'd say it's 99% chance it would not be in any AOSP, because they wouldn't reveal that code publicly. So therefore, I can almost be certain here, 99% certainty, that there will be no tensor spy code on a Google phone. If they put one in a Google phone, it is extremely unlikely they would share their proprietary code on a Google phone, because if they open source it, somebody else will take it. So that's why I think it's very, very unlikely they would do that. So that's why I said we will have an escape if they do MITM type stuff, remote access Trojan kind of things at the OS level, the spy on your phone. Even when the spy is an AI, it's not going to be doable on a Google phone. I am almost 100% certain that would be the default. Now, having said that, obviously, we can remove the code for any kind of spyware like that because it's open source. If the code existed for that, it can be removed. So therefore, it's a guarantee that the Google phone will never have that code. It will never have that code. Okay. So we got basically a couple of minutes here, or a minute and something. Let's see if there's any. Yeah, Lineage OS problem is they don't allow a update to a higher version number. So if you're Android 10, you can't update to Android 11. So whereas CalyxOS allows it, BraxOS allows it. So we're not stuck at the same Android version like Lineage is. And that's a disadvantage of Lineage. So those have to come back to us, and we have to reflash them for you. And so it's very support intensive. If you want Lineage, we can put Lineage on your phone. It is not a problem. If you want to use some other OS, the ones I don't mention here, I don't recommend it, because you don't want to hang out with crazies. Okay, I'm not as impressed by the OS as some of you. Some of you think that some of these OSs that I don't mention are somehow fabulous, and you got to understand why I don't, and I'm not that impressed. And more than that, I'm not impressed with the people. You don't want to hang around with crazy people because they put crazy stuff in the code too. If they're that crazy, they're going to put crazy stuff in the code. So, some of these things are made by one person. Like the aforementioned crazy crazy OS with a crazy person. All of that is handled by one person. Okay, and if you don't believe that person's crazy, I don't talk about crazy people here, then go listen to Louis Rossmann. Okay, a previous supporter of that OS. So I am out of time, and thank you guys for watching, and I will see you